You want every actor that you work with to be terrific.
Yeah.
It's too easy to pull out all those tricks and whatever. I'm acting, I know how to do all that smug bullshit about acting, which you can have. But it's an exciting thing, and it's a fun thing to do. You're set up with another human being. You know, playing kids' games, if you like, grown-up kids' games. As long as the believability is there, in whatever the subject matter is of the movie, it'll come across as fine. You know, it's a question of knowing the genre you're playing and how you're doing it.
How did you both meet?
He asked me to do a film about it. What was it?
We met through the Hollow Point.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, good.
Oh, let me tell the story. He asked me. No, we made a movie 10 years ago called The Hollow Point, which was originally called The Man from Carrion Road, a rather good Western noir movie, which he did a great job on. And the same cameraman, Jose David Montero, who was fantastic, with Patrick Wilson, John Leguizamo, Jim Belushi, me, but it got lost in distribution hell, as a lot of films do, independent movies especially. So it didn't get the audience it should have done. And then we stayed friends, and we did some very good work on it. And about a year later, he came up with this script that said, "We'll have this from Nacho Ferner." It was just, we knew at the time, it was a character called Wilson, it was a hitman, and then it developed more as he developed it. And I said I was interested, over the course of the next few years, we'd stay in touch about the script and talk about it while we all did other projects. I never had a doubt that we do this, but sometimes it takes longer than you think. But in the end, I think the script got better, got richer, got better. The film got simpler, but richer and better. And by the time we were able to shoot it, by the time Mike Elliott, my partner on this, and I brought in as a producer, I'd made another movie with him called Jawbone, an independent movie back in 2018. Mike came in, and we had this opportunity in 2022 to make the movie. And it felt like, it was all there. And we were 6 weeks in the Canary Islands. We arrived, rehearsed, tested, made a movie, flew back, and it was like the end of the movie. It's like, did that actually happen? But I'm glad it did, and I'm glad of the result that you see today. Over to you.
Whoa.
GLG.
We met in the same way.
Yeah, so I want to go back and tease out some of the details of that sort of encapsulated story. Which one of you connected with Nacho first? Did Nacho bring the project? Okay, and you just read it and thought immediately, this is the perfect material for Ian?
It was a very, very, very preliminary material what Nacho had. It was just an idea. I think it was, I was probably finishing editing on the Hollow Point or something. So I met Nacho and we talked about projects, about the future. And he said, I have this idea about a hitman that is about to retire. It's called Wilson. He told me the story that when he was a kid, someone told him this.
It's the story
about the money.
About the money with the kid that I have with Oscar.
So he told me about that. And then I said, why don't we ask Ian? I just made a movie with him. He's great. And we became friends. So maybe we have an opportunity. So he was like, wow, really? But there were no script at all. Actually, what he had in mind, it was the same story, but Wilson was going to the south of Spain, to Almeria, and he was finding a different element, a different metaphor than the American Star. So then I brought up the idea of the American Star because my wife is from the Canary Islands, and she told me about the American Star. So everything started to somehow working, like finding that perfect metaphor of the ship. So I visited Ian in LA. I told him about the project and he was all excited about it. So Nacho started writing the script, the actual script, started writing it with Ian in mind from the very beginning and already with the American Star in mind. So we went together to the Fuerteventura, Nacho and myself, and to find the perfect locations where the movie was going to happen. So he wrote those scenes already having in mind those specific places. But this was a very long process of 7 years until we finally made it.
Yeah.
And so, Ian, as an actor, I'm sure at this sort of juncture in your career, you do feel like you have permission to give people script notes or talk about your character, what your character does or says in the movie. But does being a producer from the beginning like this give you an extra layer of permission, if for want of a better word, to sort of collaborate and put your stamp on what this story will be?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's his movie, but I knew the character from the start. I knew that, what he wanted to do about a man getting older, a loner, a government man. I mean, he's not, we use the word hitman, but he's very much a product of, the British Army. Paratrooper, Queen and country, done his bit. He's offered into the private life. His private life wasn't great, so he's a loner. He brings up his best friend who drowned in the Falklands, son, into the idea of the army life and realizes at the end that it may not have been too good an idea. But I mean, this whole thing about it, the film is about a man who goes on a job. It's his last one, we don't know, but he's certainly not, it's near to his last one. And he's confronted by, a situation, the intelligence has failed, but no, he doesn't obey his own first rule, which is get the hell out. He says, no, I like the place. Somehow he's attracted to it, but I'll stay for a while. This is interesting, whatever. And then, of course, it develops into something else. He meets other characters and he realizes he has made a mistake. He knows he's screwed up, but he continues on the journey because it's an inevitability, whichever way it turns out. It turns out, as we say, when you see a gun in the first 5 minutes, things don't turn out usually too well. But it's an inevitability at the end of this. But I think the whole way he filmed it is a throwback to, he's filmed in a very classical style. I mean, it's not a quick bang, shoot 'em up kind of movie. It's way beyond that, way much more than that. And with the other actors and the other relationships he has, they're not just fleeting, they're kind of rich, brief as they are. And they add to something which builds up inside him for his final acts, which are out of his control. But that's it. The idea at the end, it is out of your control. No matter how much you think you're in control. No, you're not. There's bigger forces at work. And I'm glad we had the opportunity again to work together on something as rewarding as this and make a film, because when you make an independent film like this, which nobody over your shoulder, nobody telling you what to do, and it's the film that Nacho wanted to write, the film that I wanted to be in, and the film that I think he wanted to direct. And I've excluded the most important one too, which is the other part of this, which is Jose David Montero, who feels like an extra arm, the photographer, who I think did a beautiful job on the entire movie, as he has done on all Gonzalo's movies. So we had the depth of experience of working with each other, and but we had the originality of being in a place none of us had been before, working in that way. So it was exciting and thrilling, and completely natural.
So Wilson is such a well-drawn character, and obviously there's a lot of backstory that we know about, but I'd love to know, what you were hiding too, because there's a huge sense that, he's such a fully formed character. There's tons that we just have a window into about his personality. And it made me wonder, as a young actor, was this a dream role? Did you dream of being an assassin? And does all of the performance that you've done, all of your experience in John Wick, how did that color your performance of playing Wilson?
Oh, it adds up every time. I mean, it's needless to say, I've been doing this job for a long time, just as Wilson has. With acting, it's a new experience every time. And I said before, it's like, you say, I've been acting for 60 years. And somebody will say, well, is that 1 year multiplied by 60, or is it 60 years of experience you get working with other people and working with other actors, working on big productions, small productions, theatre plays, television, having produced my own shows back in the 80s, like Lovejoy in England and Madsen, a serious thriller I did, and then working on American Gods. But this is like one of those jobs that is very special, very, very special. Being able to be part of it from the beginning with the producer I respect, Mike Elliott, my partner on this, Gonzalo, who I'd worked with before, and Jose, and he casts wonderful new people in it, you know.
I mean,
the kid, the other actors, the kid. The fascinating thing is, and he'll tell you the story of the Spanish actress who was originally going to play the part of Gloria was sadly, one moment when we had the opportunity, the window of opportunity to make this movie, she wasn't available. So, over to you. How are you? Nora, the great terrific, who added, I think, something which I hadn't thought of, because she's younger than the other actress. And there might have been a spark between me and the other actress, in the sense, not between personally, but I'm talking about the relationship with Wilson. The audience might have thought, oh, maybe they sort of like each other. Maybe there's something. With this, it's a completely different relationship. It's more of a, you know, lost daughter, lost father kind of, whatever the connection between them is. But there is one. But it's not one that we, you know, not.
Yeah, we were concerned of going into some kind of romantic or even sexual relationship, but we were like, this is not the film. But Nora brought something completely fresh and new to the movie, like something really, like probably the original idea of the character, you know, like she represents the light, and she represents the happiness and dancing and things like that, but she's hiding a secret. And all those things are the things that are really making Wilson confused, but never in love. You know, it's like, I think in the worst case, he will just think about the lost opportunities or the lost love or the lost youth. You know, but it has nothing to do with her. It has to do with his own life and with his own missed moments and problems in life.
And it's interesting that you said that for Nacho, there was this seed of truth in the story between Max and Wilson. And Max is so cute, that little Oscar Coleman, and all of those scenes between you, Ian, and Max. Max, you know, Oscar Coleman. They really are joyful and touching and emotional. And you said that there was rehearsals. So can you talk to me a little bit about what the rehearsal was like each time a new actor came to set? What was your process?
We talked about it, but we also, there were the two scenes with Oscar that were exteriors, had to be filmed at specific times. I mean, one was early in the morning on the beach, the football scene, which had to be before the hotel woke up. And we actually filmed in the real life hotel. And the other scene on the roof, again, had to be filmed at the magic hour, which gives you about 40 minutes, you know, before the darkness descends. But each time, I mean, we talked about it before, but when it comes to actually filming it, Oscar and I had developed a relationship that we just, I don't know, it seemed very natural. We just flew. I mean, you know, obviously didn't adhere to all the original dialogue. So we just went with each other. The feeling was the same. The actual dialogue about that speech, of course, was correct about, you know, pay your debts and collect your debts, which is not the normal, you know, sort of thing that you say to a 7-year-old, but that's Wilson, who's finally, you know, been able to articulate to this kid, whatever, for some reason, of human, you know, he's found some kind of human connection, as he does with Nora, as he does with her mother. The bizarre dancing scene with Fanny Durant, who knows something about Wilson. She doesn't know, but she knows something's off. He knows, but all the time, he knows he's heading in maybe the wrong direction, but he hasn't felt so alive in a long time. And that, of course, the feeling of that kind of life pretends something else for it, which you see at the
Yeah, it
end.
was lovely. I love those scenes with you and Fanny and Laura. I thought that was a really, and again, a really another interesting insight into where Wilson's life, it made me feel like he was at a really pivotal moment in his life.
Well, I think that's a credit to. I mean, the thing is, it's not just the story of one guy. I mean, it's his. He's very good with actors. It's Gonzalo, so he worked especially with women, I think, and he brought something out in Nora, and Fanny was there, but them dancing together, the way he worked with them before, and I'd have my own thing. I'd go off and do something, he'd talk, and it's a rapport. I mean, that's how he brought out with the kids.
In the script, there was no actual dancing as it is in the movie. It's just that I felt like, come on, I have Mr. McShane and Fanny are that. We need to dance.
Well, yeah.
And it was the first day of shooting. So what other best way to start a shooting with them dancing? Yeah.
As a director, how have you developed your language of working with actors, Gonzalo?
I started very long time ago. I learned by doing. I did a very art house experimental film with no budget, with all the time in the world, because that's normally what happens when you don't have the money. So I spent a year working with the actors, like rehearsing with the actors, that they were doing it for free. They were just actors, but friends, and we were together in that project. So in this year, I was doing a lot of crazy things, a lot of psychological and play with the body. That was my study, let's say, because I never had the chance to study at the film school. I studied computer engineer because my father was obsessed with something like that, and it's like, okay. But that first movie gave me the chance of really working for the first time seriously with actors. So I developed my own way by writing full biographies for every character, knowing exactly how they are physically and psychologically and emotionally. And I was giving details and more details. So that was that kind of director that some actors love to do that. But I remember, and this is something that I train a lot, and that it's something that also when you work hard on that, you see little details then that go into the script and shape the character better. But I remember the first time that I worked with Ian, this is something he doesn't know. I was all prepared with all my knowledge about how to work with actors. But of course, you cannot do that with Ian McShane. You're not going to start saying, this is your emotional, this is your psychological thing, this is your... So I was just quiet. I was learning by doing. I was like, okay, I'm working now with Ian McShane. I have to change the way to approach him. So that's something really beautiful and great that I learned working with him. That is, the director needs to change all the time in the way you're going to approach an actor, because they're all different people and they need different things. And you just have to be there to protect and to give, but you cannot,
Well, I remember joining in a couple of those actors' games, whatever, thinking, oh well, he's going to run his guard up. No, I mean, everybody's got their own way of working, but it's just like that was fun. It's like part of what you discover. Easy.
So I remember Patrick Wilson. He was really pissed off at me because we did one of those games. I did like an improvisation game with him, and he was like, "But I don't like to do it."
Didn't like to do it. Whatever. I can't answer that. Everybody's got their own way, but if you dismiss everything out of hand, maybe you're going to miss out. You're going to make me miss out on something sometimes.
But you know what? That what I did when I was younger, and that way I created for myself, it helps me big time now. It helps me reading scripts. It helps me because maybe then I don't need to go to the actor and be really obsessed with little details about their childhood, but I can slip those details in the script somehow. So I know what that means.
And then do you find, Ian, that you're ever working with actors who make you better? Are you still ever surprised? I mean, I found the chap that plays your nephew, Adam, I don't want to mispronounce his surname, Negatis, who plays Ryan.
Oh, he's
quite
very gifted.
menacing.
Adam, it was funny. We both saw him in Chernobyl. I didn't think, but again, that was his, when I said, oh, he's terrific, go ahead. And he's from the north of England, so I know he's a good lad, like me. And just very straight, gets on with it. All too happy to the backstory. I mean, he came really fully prepared because that character's got to cover a lot of stuff, especially the scene. I love the opening one. We always wanted to make it like, who's that following him? Then you don't recognize who it is. And then they have this embrace. They go for lunch. They have the lunch scene. But then he sees him. The scene was interesting when it made him stop, which we weren't sure. The one at the end when he follows him and they have the anger come out of the car. And I said, this has got to be all on you, Adam. It's all you yelling at Wilson, whatever, and him taking it. It's like the young guy reading the riot act to the older guy. You know what you should have done, blah, blah. And that was not the way the scene was angled originally, but it seemed perfect. I said, you've got to take this scene. You only get better by giving it away. I mean, everybody thinks, somebody once said, it was about an actor, he should be nameless, but somebody said the idea, I think it was, who's it said it, the great writer. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was a well-known screenwriter said about an actor, his idea of a bad scene is one he isn't in. Which is kind of like, on the left screen, I mean, it just happens that I'm in this movie. It's about Wilson, but the effect you have of one scene, it's like actors, they judge by scenes. They just do the quality of what the scene is and what you give them. It's like saying, if it was just Wilson in that scene would be nothing without Adam supplying all that information about what he's become. It adds to his character, adds to my character. It's like, everything does. You want every actor that you work with to be terrific.
Yeah.
It's too easy to pull out all those tricks and whatever. That's it. I'm acting. I know how to do all that smug bullshit about acting, which you can have. But it's an exciting thing, and it's a fun thing to do. Yourself as another human being. Playing kids' games, if you like, grown up kids' games. As long as the believability is there. In whatever the subject matter is of the movie, it'll come across as fun. It's a question of knowing the genre you're playing and how you're doing it. And when you've got somebody as good as him behind the camera and knows your David, you can let it out there. Let it out there.
The cinematography you've mentioned is really beautiful. The way it captures, the sky at night when you're driving and the island, the cinematography is beautiful. And I do want to pick your brain a little bit more, like Gonzalo, when you were talking before about the metaphor of the shipwreck. I didn't know that this American Star shipwreck existed in the Canary Islands. I'm sure a lot of people don't know this story.
Not really, but...
Can you explain just a little bit further how you thought that was the perfect backdrop for this story about Wilson?
It was a huge ship, and I wasn't lucky to see it with my own eyes personally. My wife saw it, but I think somehow for me was giving you this feeling when you're and actually it's something that we talk about it with the writer, like when you're inside a cathedral and you just are mesmerized with the architecture and the size of it and the sound and everything. And so somehow this ship was the perfect element to catch Wilson's attention. But then the story that the ship had, when he started really digging about it and he knows more about that beautiful dinosaur or cathedral that is there, then he understands that he never got the chance. It never got the chance, the ship, to have this fulfilled life, because the moment that it was going to be his golden moment, like Germany invaded Poland, and then they had to paint it in gray, and he went to the army. So that's somehow what happened to him. That's somehow it's not a difficult connection. obviously we wrote it having that in mind, or Nacho wrote it, but I was always there with him, having that connection, that metaphor that we wanted to do it like that. But it was the perfect metaphor, the perfect element, and the fact that nobody knows about it. I mean, in Fuerteventura, of course, they know about it, but not all the people in Fuerteventura have seen it. There's a bar where they have rests of the shipwreck there. Out of Fuerteventura, people don't know about the story about the American Star, and it was a huge ship. It was the biggest one after the Titanic. So I thought that was also an interesting side story to tell in this one, that I actually was getting the title of the movie, but it was the perfect reflection with Wilson because of the metal. How do you say
It's a metaphor.
Yes,
Yeah.
And also, it's like, I mean, it was being towed to its final resting station.
Yes.
It's like it's like a donkey being given its last, being given after years of hard work, it's going to its rest. Like Wilson, he's going to his rest, and suddenly the ship gets broken up or whatever, in the same place.
It broke up. It's in Fuerteventura.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, what I'm saying
It
is
broke up there.
of the 7 islands, they are all different islands. There is so unique islands that Fuerteventura is the only one that has that landscape. Really, in those desertic areas and
North African
look, it's like the perfect texture and scars of the land. Like it's the scars of Wilson. And the ship was in that island. It was not in another beautiful island with green mountains and things like that. Everything was happening there. So everything was pointing that our story should happen in Fuerteventura. That was the perfect soup.
It is beautiful. And of course, I'm guessing it's imagination work, because I'm guessing that was VFX, CGI. So, I mean, the ship was added afterwards. It's already right.
Yes, that's how it is. I mean, would have been different with the ship there, I know, but we're not lucky. Would have been cheaper.
I think it was a ship there.
Exactly.
So, Ian, at this point, you have had such a sort of successful. There's been so much longevity in your career. How much of that do you think is luck?
Oh, a lot. Anybody that says luck had nothing to do with it doesn't know much about this business. No, I mean, I've been, 60, coming up 62 years now. Started with movies, and here we are, 62 years later, still doing it, still loving it, especially if I can do a movie like this with this kind of a director. But again, I've been lucky with, on John Wick with Chad. I've been lucky enough on American Gods as a TV show. Could have been a lot better than it was, but we won't go into that. But again, I got the chance to, do something different with that. And my own stuff back in the 80s, like producing Lovejoy, my own show on TV, and various ups and downs. Before that, don't forget, if you're around this business, you know how it's changed over the last 60 years. The fact that, 70s, but there was nothing happening in England. I remember when we came to America in 74, there were blackouts every night in England. I mean, you couldn't watch TV or whatever, the miners' strikes or whatever. It was all going on. You came in, all the Americans suddenly, all the England back in the late 60s, 70s, they all moved back to the States. And suddenly the cinema, because they all thought television was going to kill the movie business. I mean, we're going back it's fascinating movie history. And it didn't, of course, it never does. Nobody predicted the rise of cable. I mean, last year you had the demise of the legacy studios because they were terrified of streaming. Like Netflix was the only show in town. So they made their muddled attempts to go into streaming. Now they're regretting it because they don't know what streaming actually exists. And movies are back big time with, Barbenheimer, whatever they called it. I mean, the 2 movies. But at least anything that brings people back into the cinema, which I love going to movies. I mean, you've got to. I mean, I went to the movies when you'd go to the movies and you'd have cartoons, then you'd have short movies, then you'd have a newsreel, then you'd have a B movie, then you'd have the main movie. So when you had popcorn, my mom and dad loved it. So they took me. So I loved it going there, and you'd see that, and the magic screen would dim, and then the movie would come. I mean, I still love it. I still get a kick when I see tonight when we'll be watching it and it goes dark, quiet, And out comes the movie, you go, I hope it's going to be as good as the last time I saw it. Even though you've seen it 4 times, you still go, I hope they're real. So, I mean, he's very lucky to be part of this business, you know? And it's a great business to be in. And especially when you get to make something like this, yes, yeah, it comes true sometimes. You know, it really does. And it's hugely exciting.
I think for both of you, just in terms of, you know, encouraging actors, that there are turning points in every career. Do either of you have any advice about capitalizing on opportunities that you've been given?
Oh, that's one thing. I think that the last 20 years has been much more part of the symbiotic relationship of the Hollywood actor with the agent, with the group, I mean, now it's such a thing with fashion groups. I mean, I think my agency, you know, is owned by LMVH, you know. You go, wow, I'm owned by Hennessy Whiskey. But I mean, the whole thing has come together in a different kind of way. I mean, as an actor, I never had any plans about, yes, now I'm going to make this movie, and then I'm planning, this movie comes out, I'll do this play, and then I never thought of my career in those kind of terms. I was just an actor, be happy to be doing it. I mean, went from movie to stage play to theater, I mean, to the theater, and then back to a television. I mean, my first TV was a live TV show on live TV back in 1962, a 2-hander. I mean, you thought nothing about it. Nowadays, I mean, can you imagine actors doing live TV? It was like the opening thing. It's like terrifying, you know. And now we are on. I mean, because you are live. But it means, no, it's great. And if you like doing what you do, and no, I think I made some monumental errors at the time. My personal life got sometimes in the way of my working life, but that's part of life too. You can't plan on what you're going to be. I mean, and sometimes you go, maybe I should have done that. But if you look, you know, I don't look at life in the rearview mirror, you know, although you have to face it now and again, as Wilson does. Again, it's a metaphor for this, as Wilson has to. The mistakes you've made, but are you going to live with them? Are they big ones? But human beings. And you make films about human beings, which is why I've never been a great science fiction fan. But he'll tell you that. We know about this. But, you know, when you get the chance to do a movie like this, which is, you know, it's just, I think it's the way you approach it. I think we did the film the right way, and I think the film's come out the right way. And I'm enormously, you know, I'm really happy to be sitting next to him talking to you about this project, which I'm enormously proud of for both of us. And we hope, you know, people will go and see it and feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yes. And congratulations to both of you, and hoping for big success for this really great in-depth character study and story. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for asking. Thank you.
Thank you very much.